welcome to my channel. If you're new, hello, my name is Alyssa, and if you're not new, welcome back. Recently, I found myself gravitating towards like skinwalker stories, especially real ones, and I was like, what have I not covered on my channel yet? Skinwalkers. I think I did make a video a while ago about a skinwalker story, but that was just one story, whereas today I'm gonna be reading three skinwalker stories I have for you guys, and I think that these are pretty fucking scary, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you like the video, make sure to like the video, and if you want to see more content from me, make sure to subscribe. But yeah, short intro today. Usually I like to ramble, but I kind of just want to get into them because I'm sort of excited to read them for you guys. So yeah, let's get into the story. And make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content from me. My mother was a hoarder, not the kind you see on TV, buried under mountains of trash, but bad enough that it changed her, bad enough that it changed me. She had accessible bathrooms, was able to cook around the piles, even did laundry and dishes on occasion, but she had to sift through mounds of junk to find anything she needed. She started seeing mice, scattering roaches when she flicked on the light. I'd been worried about her ever since I left for college, worried it would get worse. That one day she would stack old magazines on top of the oven coils, flick a switch, and burn the place down. Maybe it is an only child thing to worry about your parents as much. I don't have siblings to check in. My father's been gone 10 years now. She's all I have left. I know she has broken pieces in her brain. I know something dark happened to her. Maybe my father's death. Maybe something even older. Something pushed her mental state like a twig, pushed until it snapped. She had always been messy, but after Dad died, it became so much worse. A couple weeks ago, I tried to call for the first time in a while. A robotic voice told me her service had been disconnected. I thought about a wellness check, calling the police, but I knew the cracks in her mind seeped deeper than just hoarding. She could be unpredictable. Besides, I figured she probably just spent too much of her social security checks on lotto tickets and Marlboros. Forgot to pay the bills. After a few days, I grew worried. I took the rest of the summer off, dropped my classes and ate the fee. I bought a plane ticket home. It was not just about the lack of phone service. That was only the nadir for a conversation that had been long overdue. When I arrived, I thanked my taxi driver and watched the yellow blur disappear down the road. Immediately, I was shocked at the state of my childhood home. The grass was months overgrown. Milkweeds grown as tall as my hips swayed in the breeze. The chain-link gate rustled back and forth. It was a small home, 2 stories. Found it odd how all the blinds were drawn, yellowed and sun-bleached behind the dirty glass. Several magazines still wrapped in plastic sleeves sat on the porch, and pink and yellow notices were stuck to the knob. I opened the mailbox. It was stuffed full of junk mail and past due bills. "Mama, you haven't been keeping up on the bills," I sighed. I looked around. The whole neighborhood looked worse for wear now. Maybe it was the foggy lenses of childhood innocence crumbling away. Being back made my gut feel like a stone sinking deep into a pond. I approached the front door and rattled the handle. Locked. I rang the doorbell and waited. Nothing. I knew where she kept the spare key for the back door. I turned and moved down the steps. The neighborhood was dead. No familiar faces. Only me and the faint rustle of breeze and the distant sound of low, middle-class suburbia. I walked beneath the awning of the carport, passing Mom's silver Honda. Dust covered the windows. How long had it been since she drove this thing? The spare key was hidden inside a fake rock. I had told her before it was a bad idea, but right now I was grateful. The lock clicked easily, and I slipped inside. Immediately, I was hit with a foul odor of decay. I had taken a deep inhale without thinking, and I turned and retched into the weeds. I suspected the worst. I thought about dialing 911, but I had to see it for myself first. I held my shirt over my nose and slipped back inside. The house was dark. The hoarding had worsened since I last saw her. Still not a surmountable amount. Not enough to poison the bones of the home, but not good either. I saw him lying in the living room, Mr. Whiskers. Flies buzzed in the slits of light from the blinds. Maggots writhed in his almost fully decaying corpse. I swallowed the rising tide of bile, my fingers shaking. Poor Mr. Whiskers, she loved that cat. A deeper pang of fear struck like the tip of a knife. If she had let this happen to him, something must be wrong. I grabbed my cell phone and called the police. They had a few cruisers out faster than I expected. A team of officers wearing blue latex gloves combed through the place. After some time, one sat me down on the front porch. She wasn't inside. They looked in every crevice, beneath every teetering pile. They were thorough and concluded there were no signs of foul play, no signs of forced entry. It was as though she had just vanished. "When did you see her last?" a mustached, graying police veteran asked me. His badge read Officer Mathers. "We haven't been talking as much recently. I've been busy with school, and she can be a difficult person to communicate with sometimes. It's been at least 4 months." The cop nodded sympathetically, scratched at his chin. "Does she have any friends, family she could be staying with?" I shook my head. I knew my mom could rub people the wrong way. She didn't keep friends around. Too much fuss. No other family, really. God, I could have been talking about myself. I couldn't tell if that hurt worse than saying it about Mama. Okay, that about clears up my line of questioning. I do have one thing I need to show you inside. Oh, okay, sure. The other cops were filtering out now, returning to their squad cars. I followed Officer Mathers inside. He led me up the creaking stairs. Boxes and old furniture lined up each side. The house had aired out a little, but it still had held an underlying aroma of dust, the smell from Mr. Whiskers dampening, but lingering. Officer Mathers clicked away a fly buzzing near his face. Upstairs, he led me to the master bedroom. Junk had been pushed to the far corner. Her bed was pushed to the opposite wall from where it usually sat. The old floral comforter was disheveled. Red lines adorned the walls and ceiling, mad ramblings. Doorway to the 9 divine blessings. Partake of the flesh. The god of Drek. Between the writing there were patterns, sharp pointed arrowheads interspersed with weaving circular lines. God, she'd really lost it. On the wall to my left, where the bed once sat, there was an outline in red, shaped like a doorway, the size of something you'd see in a children's playhouse. Red arrows of all shapes and sizes pointed to it. "Oh no," I muttered aloud. Officer Mathers walked over to the red outline and pressed a hand down on the gray wallpaper. Nothing. His hand didn't get sucked through. His arm didn't reveal any hidden hatch. I've seen cases like this before. Paranoid schizophrenia. Delusions. Hoarding, I interjected. Yes, hoarding too. Look, you seem to be bright, so I won't lie to you. This doesn't bode well. If we find her, I'd recommend looking into treatment. How old is your mother again? She's only 50. If we find her. Those words lingered like smoke in my mind. He sucked in a breath, looking around the room. And I hate to bring this on you at such a time, but I am obligated to report this. He swept a hand at the mounds of trash. It's breaking fire codes, city ordinances. We need it cleaned up for her safety. I'll give you some time, but when I swing back here in a few days, I want to see some improvement or I'll have to get the city involved. Understand? I nodded. I'll spend some time cleaning it up. And I did just that. I dipped into my savings and rented a dumpster that was parked in the driveway. I bought all sorts of cleaning equipment. Mr. Whiskers was the first thing to go. His carcass was flattened into a firm disc, and I tried not to hurl at the sight of the maggots. There was a deep brown stain in the carpet where he was decomposed. It looked like something had been chewing at him. Once I tossed him in the dumpster, the smell inside the home immediately improved. I called around and paid the bills. Thankfully, the house itself has been paid off, so all I had to do was catch up on the utilities, which were 2 months overdue. I got the power and the water restored that day. Then came the hard work. I tossed out broken lawn chairs, boxes of soiled newspapers dating back to the 70s. I managed to clean out the whole living room by the time the sun started to dwindle. I have a tendency to work through pain rather than face it. I lay down on the old, musty couch, sweat dripping down my brow, when I heard a knock come from upstairs. I startled awake, staring up at the ceiling. It sounded like it came from there, from right above me. I stood and moved up the stairs, turning on lights as I went. Most bulbs were burnt out, but a few flickered to life. I rounded the corner, cautious. Knock. The sound was coming from the master bedroom. When I rounded the corner, I saw the lettering and symbols inside the room glowed with a faint red luminescence. It reminded me of bioluminescence, algae you'd see down in the crushing depths of the midnight zone. Where the red doorway was outlined, there was now a yawning black mouth. Seeing it sent the hairs rising on my arms. I felt a deep sense of wrongness. Hard to explain what it is like, seeing your sense of possibility slip away. The feeling of your internal lines blurring. A skeptic seeing a ghost manifest right in front of them. What I was seeing was impossible, but there it was anyway, tearing a hole into my reality. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the bed and shoved with everything I had, grinding it across the floor until it thumped against the far wall, blocking the hole. I backed out of the room, which opened outward, and shoved a chair from the kitchen beneath the door handle. I settled back down on the couch, struggling to sleep, imagining what loomed upstairs, that glowing doorway, that tunnel that looked as though it went on forever, collapsing inward like a wormhole. Knock, knock. I gazed upward. It came again from above me. My heart beat faster. I leaned towards the wall, hesitated, then knocked 3 times in rhythm. Knock, knock. I felt nauseous. I slumped beneath the blanket I was using, trying to focus on my phone. I heard the bed sliding away from the wall, a deep groan of wood biting wood. Then the sound of heavy hands, feet, something on all fours gruffling around the room. Pacing back and forth. A dog in a run. The doorknob rattled upstairs. I heard the hinges groan and creak under the weight of something flexing its body against the door. The pattering resumed, the slap of hands shifting around above me. Some primal part of my brain, some old loose neuron firing deep inside my skull, told me that whatever was crawling around upstairs was not my mom. Knock. That seemed to confirm it. I lay there for hours, teeth gritted, clutching my blanket to my chest. Irrationally, I stayed there all night. I didn't have anywhere else to go. The light cut into the room through the dirty glass. A ribbon of sun landed on my face. I woke up gasping, looking around frantically. The house was silent, except for the titter of birds outside. The night before felt like a fever dream. I slipped on sandals and pulled clean clothes out of my suitcase. After brushing my teeth and changing out of my sweat-soaked tank top, I moved upstairs. The chair was still pinned beneath the doorknob. I moved it aside and stepped into the room. The first thing I noticed was how the bed had been shoved back, sideways, upheaved against the wall. I knew I had moved it the night before, and there was no yawning mouth in the door. I decided the rest of the cleaning could wait. I needed answers. The blinds in the room were closed, but an orange glow crept in from the edges. I grabbed a staple gun and a heavy black trash bag. I stapled it back in place, layering 2 more bags over it until not a speck of light entered. The room was drenched in a deep shadow. I saw the slight glow of red fill the space like a burning nebula. Sunlight crept in through the crack beneath the door, so I shoved a blanket against it. I heard a muffled sucking noise as a black square filled the spot it had yesterday. I wasn't delusional. It was there. Only this time I smelled old compost baking in the sun. The fetid stench of an unkept outhouse. I found a measuring tape and approached the doorway. I am a petite, quite short person. The only way I would be able to fit through it was to crawl on my hands and knees. I got close, the stench clinging heavy to the air. The doorway looked like an illusion, the folded edges seeping into the void like a coin spiraling into one of those mall funnels. I eased the tape measurer forward. It clipped through the mask of darkness, and I saw the wall shiver around the rattling yellow line. I continued to push it forward. At 4 feet in, I felt it touching something unseen, like a fishing lure scraping a lake bottom, a fisherman feeling for tension. I pushed it to 6 feet, 8. Suddenly, a rattling tension yanked through the line. Something grabbed the end. The tape whipped through my fingers, slicing a groove into my palm. I gasped at the jolt of pain. The tape made a rattling din as it disappeared into the void. The case was ripped from my hand, sucked into the wall. I shuffled backward, palm bleeding. Even out of sight, I heard the tape rattling. Then it shot back out. There was a pause. I stared at the gaping darkness. Something came whipping through the air inches from my head, crashing into the wall with a whip crack. I heard the measuring tape clatter to the floor. I turned to see a deep wound in the drywall. The tape measurer lay smoking where it landed. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. Get out before I hurt you. A deep gurgling noise came from the small doorway. The sound of someone drowning, choking for air. Movement approached. And frantic tapping against the walls. I rushed forward, ripped the trash bags down, and bathed the room in light. My pupils dilated painfully against the sudden brightness. The black doorway was gone. I wrapped a towel around my bleeding palm and dusted off an old first aid kit my mom kept in the bathroom. As I cleaned and bandaged the wound, a realization crept in slow and cold. The police were not going to find my mom. If there was any chance of finding her, it was up to me. The thought wrapped itself around my ribs like a wire tightening. Anxious thorns pressed inward with every breath. I am an immense introvert with obsessive tendencies. Doing this would require more from me than I thought I had. But what other choice was there? She was my mother, my blood, the last person in the earth, or the world, I felt connected to. And if she was alive, she needed my help. The decision was made. I walked to the local hardware store and bought the most powerful construction lights I could find, 2 cage work lights with thousands of lumens. I stopped by an outdoor outfitter and picked up a harness, carabiners, ascenders, descenders, a static rope long enough to drop through the doorway, and a high lumen headlamp. When I arrived home with a stolen shopping cart piled high with gear, a heavy fog had rolled across the neighborhood. The sky churned with a rolling tide of thunderclouds. There was a hum in the air. I noticed for the first time the for sale signs posted on the lawns around my mom's house. Maybe they too felt the ripple in the air. Maybe that was why the neighborhood was a dry husk now. The air smelled like gunpowder. I tasted ash, the cinders of a forest fire. The mist swallowed the whole world. As I entered the house, a tail of fog curled in behind me. I felt like a diver standing on the white sand precipice of a great ocean cliff, watching alien shapes loom in the abyss below. I set up the construction lights in the master bedroom. In the background, the knocking came steady from within the walls, like dripping water from an old pipe. Knock, knock, knock. The air was heavy with dampness. A cinereal hue seeped into the walls. The whole house felt like it was breathing. I flicked on the lamps, bleaching the room in merciless white light. I wasn't ready to go through the portal yet. I needed control first, some measure of it. Clearly the doorway was bound by rules. Light seemed to be one of them, the glowing rooms too. I rummaged through my mom's belongings, boxes of junk, old newspapers, magazines, nothing useful. Hours later, I found a bound leather journal shoved between the mattress and the bed frame. Alongside it, a bottle of ink and a fountain pen. When I uncorked the bottle, it smelled metallic, like blood, mingled with the scent of charcoal. The scrawls inside the journal were nightmarish. Icons of people skinned alive, stretched out and pinned to columns like grotesque angels. Mountains of garbage rose around them. My mom's mind had not just been broken. It had been twisted, reshaped into something alien. I flipped pages, symbols that cut the paper with their symmetry, jagged words I didn't understand. The journal unsettled me. There was no clear information inside, nothing I could use. I set it aside and refocused on the goal, on my mission. In the attic, I found my father's old rabbit rifle, a box of .22 caliber shells. I grabbed a rusted 2-bit axe from the shed outside. Found his old Alaskan wolf trap too, a monstrous thing built for bears and wolves. I drenched the mechanism in WD-40 until the joints moved smoothly again. Something else caught my eye beneath a pile of bird cages. A gallon of gasoline for the mower. I grabbed that too. A plan started forming in my mind. Reckless, stupid, but it was all I had. My eyes flicked back to the crawling on the wall, the god of Drek. The thing I heard crawling that night wasn't a god, no divine being of filth and trash. It was a parasite, a leech, hardwired to feed. I was going to make it bleed. The world outside dimmed, the sun shrinking like a bruised orange behind a blanket of clouds. Stacks of boxes loomed against the walls. I felt an ache in my collarbone where it had pinned together with screws years ago. A memory from 6th grade. An old pain resurrected. My palm throbbed under the gauze. It took all my weight and several tries to set the wolf trap. When it finally clicked down with a heavy clank, I slid it carefully into place in front of where the yawning doorway would appear. I loaded the rabbit rifle, thumbing in the cartridge one by one. Small rounds, but they would have to do. I set the construction lights up, but kept them unplugged for now, ready to blaze at a moment's notice. I kept the gas can within reach, a last resort. Outside, the world was swallowed in swirling white fog. Dew clung to the glass. I stapled more trash bags over the window, throwing the room into complete darkness. The faint red glow crept back to life. The doorway swirled, open again. The wall, beyond vanishing into the growing void. The stench of rotten wood and stagnant water filled the air. I felt the faint clicking sound of coins rattling in a jar. A frantic tapping started against the walls. The gurgling noise returned, low and wet. The blackness in the doorway swelled and pulsed. The walls vibrated under the pressure. I shuffled back, rifle aimed at the center. The red glow pulsed and appeared. Not a face exactly. It was an exposed nerve pretending to be a face, skinless, spasming, muscle flickering with twitches, bone jutted in the wrong places, a stretched and melting human face buried halfway through a horse's skull. Holes gaped where eyes should have been. It pulled itself forward on too many limbs, stick-thin appendages folded like broken insects. Snap. The wolf trap clamped shut against its midsection with a sound that was half metallic clang, half meat rupture. A gout of blackened pus exploded sideways across the floor, stemming where it hit the old wood. The creature screeched, not from a mouth. It screeched from inside my head, a sound that cracked against my bones and drove straight into my spine. It thrashed, pinned, half its body still inside the portal, half stuck in our world. The trap held. It was caught. It wasn't dying, but it was vulnerable. It spasmed, yanking against the trap, slick limbs scraping and slapping at the floor. The iron teeth of the old Kodiak trap were buried deep, grinding bone and viscera. Thick black ooze poured from the wound, steaming where it touched the floorboards. It wasn't bleeding like anything natural. What came out looked more like oil or tar laced with static. It kept twitching, frantic, trying to drag itself free, but the trap held. I grabbed the construction lamp's cord, dragging it forward, inch by inch, until it hovered near the thrashing edge of the portal. My fingers trembled. The creature went still. I knew it. It jerked once, violently, trying to pull back, but the trap only bit deeper. It stuck, snared. I shoved the plug into the socket. The lamps blazed to life, a brutal wash of white light flooding the room. The creature screamed, but not out loud. The scream rattled my ribs, cracked against my teeth, a deep psychic howl that vibrated the marrow in my bones. The portal rippled violently. The walls buzzed with heat as the red runes burned brighter. The light hit the threshold. The portal cinched tighter. Its edges trembled like a clenched jaw. The creature thrashed once more, a final desperate spasm, and then the wall bit down. The trap groaned under the strain. There was a crunch, wet and final, as the thing severed cleanly in half. The portal's edges cauterized white hot, sealing shut as the top half of the creature collapsed onto the floor. The lower half, still trapped, twitching once before slumping into a pile of glistening black muck. The stench was unbearable. Wet mulch and rotting meat mixed with something sickly sweet. It filled the room like a living thing, crawling into my nose, my mouth, my skin. The light bulb flickered once, whining under the strain. The portal spasmed again, glitching like a corrupted video feed. I raised my rifle, pressed the barrel to what was left of its twitching face, and pulled the trigger. The head exploded like a rotten melon, black ichor splattering the wall behind it. Wisps of smoke curled from the barrel. My heart hammered in my chest. The twitching slowed, but it didn't stop. The half-corpse slumped, leaking thick black fluid that puddled in the floorboard, bubbling and popping with tiny bursts of static. The rapping on the walls pitched higher, faster. Maybe it wasn't the creature knocking after all. Her fingers twitched weakly against the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Not to escape, but to warn me. She'd been trying to reach me, to pull me in, or maybe to push something out. Something shifted behind her, deep in the shadows. A low, wet groan crawled out from somewhere within the tunnel. The sound vibrated through the floor and into my teeth. I froze. She was not alone in here, and neither was I. From the folds in the fleshy walls, a shape emerged. Thin, low to the ground, its body gliding rather than walking, its head jerked from side to side with insectile precision, sniffing the air with a wet, pulsing snout where a nose should have been. Another shape followed, then another. Glints caught in the beam of my headlamp, eyes slits of light, dozens of them, crawling from every crack and fold in the tunnel. Some scuttled like spiders on too many legs. Others stretched tall, like skeletons stuffed into bags of leaking water. They moved toward her. They moved toward me. I ran, fumbled the rifle onto my back, nearly tripped over my own feet as I sprinted to her side. Her eyes followed me, her mouth opened, cracked and bleeding, and a whisper rattled out. End it, for the love of God. I dropped the gas can, trying to pull the rag free from my pocket. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the matches too. I shoved the rag deep into the can's mouth and struck a match against the box. The flame caught immediately. The creatures noticed. Their pace changed. No more slow stalking. They charged. I stepped back, tears cutting clean lines through the grime on my face. Her gaze stayed locked onto mine. There was no anger there, only pleading. I'm sorry, I whispered. She blinked slowly one last time. I threw the can. It hit the wall beneath her with a dull splash, soaking the area in gasoline. The burning rag hissed against the wet surface for half a second before the whole thing ignited with a low, heavy whump. The heat punched the air out of my lungs. Fire raced up the fleshy walls, caught in the pulsing sacs, split them open like overripe fruit. Black fluid hissed and popped, fueling the fire higher. The tunnel came alive with screams. The structure itself shrieked, a deep wet howl that rattled through the walls and into my bones. The sacs along the corridor ruptured one after another, spraying black ichor into the fire, feeding the inferno. The light grew harsher, flickering madly across the uneven surfaces. Shapes convulsed in the distance. Writhing forms caught in the rising flames, their bodies twisted and buckled, silhouettes melting against the burning walls. Some of the creatures screeched and collapsed instantly. I turned and ran. The tunnel was tightening, contracting like a throat. The walls pulsed and squeezed inward. The static in my ears spiked until it felt like my skull would split open. My headlamp flickered but held. I could see the rope. The rope, my last lifeline. The creatures were behind me now. I could hear the slap of limbs against the burning, writhing floor. The roar of the fire drowned out everything else. I reached the rope, hands slipping against the heats like nylon. I grabbed it, wrapping it around my wrist, and began hauling myself upward. Below me, the world burned, and I did not dare look back. My boots slipped against the blood-slick surface. My wounded palm screamed in pain every time it gripped the rope. I climbed anyway, forcing my body upward. The portal was shrinking, the edges curled inward, burning themselves away. I felt the rope lurch once sharply as something heavy collided with the bottom. I did not stop. I climbed faster, hand over hand. At the last second, I heaved myself through the threshold. I landed hard on the bedroom floor, scraping my elbows and knees. Smoke billowed out of the collapsing portal, thick and choking. The runes on the walls sputtered, flickered, dimmed to the dying embers. The black mouth in the wall shrank smaller and smaller until it winked out completely, leaving behind a charred, cracked patch of drywall. The remains of the creature caught in the wolf trap had started to dissolve, melting into a vicious black slurry that hissed as it spread across the floor. I did not move. I lay there on the floor, covered in sweat, soot, and blood, staring up at the stained ceiling. I was alive, but I had failed her. I left her behind, even though she had asked me to, even though it was the only mercy left. I sat up slowly, every muscle trembling. The air was heavy with smoke and the bitter metallic stink of blood. I peeled the gauze from my palm and winced at the angry, red gash underneath. The bedroom looked gutted. Scorched black fingerprints marred the walls. The floral comforter was coated in soot. The wood beneath the burned-out portal crackled faintly as it cooled. I stumbled downstairs. The living room was a mess of half-clean junk and overturned boxes. The front door hung ajar, letting the heavy morning fog seep inside in long, lazy tendrils. The sky outside was a flat, empty gray, the color of old bones. I leaned against the wall. I had destroyed the portal. I had burned whatever nightmare had taken root in this house. I had freed her, in the only way that was left. So why did I feel like I had only peeled back the first layer of something deeper? I closed the door and bolted it, but the act felt hollow. There were no locks strong enough for what I had seen, no door thick enough, no prayers loud enough. I drifted through the house in a daze. Every corner, every piece of furniture seemed wrong now, corrupted by proximity. Running my hands over these same walls, watching cartoons on that same battered couch, listening to my mom humming out of tune in the kitchen while washing dishes. Now everything felt stained, as though something muddy had left its fingerprints all over the memory of my life. And in that ruined silence, in that broken house, a thought wormed its way into the core of my mind. What if the fire wasn't enough to kill her? I wished that the writer went a little bit more into, like, I don't know, into like the religion part. I kind of get what the point is, but like, I don't know. I feel like I could have gone into it a little bit more. I would have liked to know what it was, but yeah. The ending was kind of confusing, honestly. Anyways, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If there's a second part, I will make a second part to this because there's not a lot of context, to be honest. I feel like it just kind of like ends on the cliffhanger, but yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to end it here because this was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. So, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you liked the video, make sure to like the video and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content from yours truly. Oh my god, I've been burping like throughout the video. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.